Very good afternoon and evening to everyone, and thank you for attending the Digital Media India 2021. I am Wilson Leong from WAN-IFRA based in Singapore, and I'm a host for these sessions. Should you have any questions during the sessions, please feel free to post them on the Q&A located on the right side. Today, we have a deep dive panel discussion building for subscription success in Asia hosted by Google News Initiative. As Asian news publishers accelerate their shift to subscription, differences in microeconomic factors, audience channels, available technologies, and digital maturity are shaping the journey to sustainable revenue growth. For creating unique value proposition to understanding strategic pricing for their loyalty segment, how they are galvanizing their organization to build towards a successful digital subscription business in 2021 and beyond. And leading the discussion today, we have Sheena Bala, Data and Innovation Strategy, Google News Initiative. Sheena has been leading program on the Google News Initiative since its launch in 2018. She has worked with partner newsroom on programs that span the full spectrum of newsroom operation and strategies, from diversity, equality, and inclusion to analytics and data. She has designed and executed programs like the GNI Design Accelerator and Data Labs in 2019, helping the newsroom develop ideas for news products that serve the needs for their audience and internal constituencies. Sheena's professional background also includes experience in programmatic ad technology, mobile ad productization, and sales and media production in both corporate and non-profit settings. She has possessed a rich geographical experience with growth in Tokyo, Sydney, and now Singapore. And over to you, Sheena.
Thank you so much, Wilson. I don't know if my chat actually went to everyone, but I was really, really grateful for such extensive introduction. Thank you, everyone who's joining us here today from India, from parts of Asia Pacific, and then also from different parts of the world. I think my introduction's already done, but just a quick word from me. I'm really, really excited to be having this conversation with you today, sharing with you about our labs, and then also have a very, very exciting panel for you here today. But before we dive into the panel, I just quickly wanted to give you some context on the Google News Initiative Subscription Lab, and what we have been doing as part of our scale labs and programs. We've now hosted these labs across North America, LATAM, EMEA, and this comes from our continuous work to enhance opportunities and experimentation for business sustainability within the news industry and media organizations. Subscription has always been front and center for news organizations as they advance into the future for journalism. But with the onset of the pandemic, we saw not just consumer behaviors changing, news becoming relevant and front and center when consumers were looking for trusted information, and the acceleration of digitization when everyone was at home in lockdown. And so subscriptions and reader revenue also became very, very critical for most news publishers to explore, and specifically in Asia, where there were very few examples of success of subscription models. So last year, at the Asia Leaders Media Summit in August, we launched the Google News Initiative Subscription Lab in partnership with WAN-IFRA. And post that, we selected 8 news organizations across Asia to come with us on a journey for 4 months in order to build lighthouse examples of subscription and reader revenue. And the 4-month journey was an intensive cohort-based program where not only did we have extensive stakeholder interviews to understand what was the North Star, what was the goal that the media organization was driving towards, but how did the subscription goals map up to the North Stars. And we did very in-depth audits to understand where the gaps were in achieving those goals, not just from a product perspective, but also from people and processes. And at the end of the sessions, we are currently in the works to build a report that highlights what were some of the use cases that other media organizations within Asia could learn from. But today I have the opportunity to bring to you a panel of experts from two different markets. From India, Bloomberg Quint, Vaibhav Khanna, who's the head of product, Nandgopal Nair, who's the news editor, but also from Taiwan, we have Yishun, who we will be lovingly calling YC through our discussion today, who's the president for Commonwealth Magazine, one of the most trusted names in media organizations in Taiwan, and then Xiaolun, who is the lead for transformation and is leading the subscription lab with us within Commonwealth. And without further ado, I would like to invite our panelists now on stage, or on our remote stage, and just kick off the conversation by first inviting Bloomberg to come and share with us what are some of share a little bit more about your organization, what your brand stands for, and what has been your subscription journey so far. So Vaibhav and Nandu, and then we'll invite Commonwealth to do the same.
I think I'll take that question for Bloomberg Quint. We are an Indian business and financial news startup. We are lucky to combine Bloomberg's global leadership in business and financial news and data with Quintillion Media's deep understanding of the Indian media space and news delivery. Our target audience is the sophisticated Indian audiences who are interested in business and markets. We were launched in July 2016, and in a fairly short amount of time, we sort of pivoted to a subscription model in December of 2018. We pioneered the hybrid paywall model in India, where with free, metered, as well as subscriber-only hard paywall stories. With our 2 years of experience and the lessons we learned from the Google News Initiative Lab, we are now poised to take our subscription journey to the next level. We have recently started to focus on new areas, including generating leads through newsletters, streamlining payment flows, and driving reader engagement at every turn. Some of the new things that we are testing also include propensity-led paywalls, registration paywalls, and also variable pricing and messaging so that we can reach different audiences with different kind of paywall messaging at different parts of their journey on the site. We have also been introducing a lot of subscriber-only features and user recommendation features on the site to try to personalize the experience for users who come onto the Bloomberg. That's a short wrap of.
Thank you, Vaibhav. I think there's a little bit of a lag in my internet connection. Sorry, thank you, Nandu, for that description. There's a little bit of a lag in my side. So shifting the lens from a digital native in India to a legacy publisher and a legacy magazine in Taiwan, I'll hand it over to Commonwealth to speak a little bit about their organization, their brand, and their subscription journey so far.
Hello, everyone. This is Commonwealth Magazine Group. We are, like Sheena introduced, a legacy organization with 40 years of experience in the industry. We started with this magazine, which is the first comprehensive business magazine in Taiwan, and we have expanded to 4 titles, 5 vertical sites, and online products and publishing houses. We are in the top 10 in terms of reach, and we are one of the most trusted brands in Taiwan in business. In terms of digital transformations, this is the path we've taken. And as you can see, we launched the digital meter paywall in 2017. Since then, we actually have tweaked our paywall so that we now also have a hybrid where we have free articles, we have metered articles, we also have hard paywall articles. We, in the last 3 years, actually close to 4 years now, we have hit our digital subscribers overtook our print subscribers last year. So it's quite a milestone. We benefit greatly from this lab because it's really helped us align and figure out what the digital subscription business is like, and to be much more focused on what our next strategic steps are. So in the last 4 years, we were very lucky. We were able to really, I mean, the print subscriber has really dwindled in many parts of the world, and we were able to make it up by the digital subscribers. Besides that, we are able to also attract a younger audience and more diverse subscribers. So in a nutshell, really quickly, that's an introduction of Commonwealth Magazine. Yeah.
Thanks, Shalin. And it's really interesting to have both of you as our panelists today, because one of the reasons we had the two different cohorts was to really understand the different extremes that were in Asia. You know, Asia is full of diversity. That's nothing new to anyone. And what you notice is not just the macroeconomic trends, but consumer trends, the trust that users have in news and media, the willingness to pay. And there are so many other sub-trends that define the success of a business to be able to, one, launch subscriptions, digitalization being one of them, but also then be able to sustain it as a continuous revenue source. I'd love to, since we are with you, Shalin, I'd love to share with the audience, what were some of the evolving trends that you're seeing in your market, and which ones are the ones that you are focusing on to define what subscription success looks for you, or your subscription strategy looks like? Sorry, you're on mute, Shalin.
Thank you. I think for us, we were lucky that I think we're one of the first market movers in the market, which means we really have to do a lot to educate the market in terms of paying for news. And we have, in terms of the numbers, I think Reuters digital reports, it's reporting that in Taiwan, there's about 15% that's willing to pay for news. And that number has kind of fluctuated a little bit in the last 4 years, from 15 to about 18, and then it dropped to 12, and now it's back to 15. So it's kind of keeping constant. But I think a good sign for us is that in 2019, we have another newspaper started to launch their paywall, and another one launched a paywall last year. So we're seeing a few more media players jumping in. Major newspapers to really start also their paywall strategy. And for us, that's a good sign that people are really picking up and going into this direction. In terms of internally, I mean, this is a key strategy for us to digitally transform, because it's only through digital subscription where you can really see the real-time behaviors of our readers and then make digital informed decisions, which is revolutionary for a lot of our processes. Yeah. Intern, did you want to add anything?
It's just that to speak more honestly, I think the market is not.
It's not quite there.
You're right. One of the largest newspaper just removed their paywall last year, so it's not such a rosy picture. I think the market is still waiting to be educated, which is meaning that you have to pay for quality news, something like that. So it's really still we're struggling with that still. That's.
And you raised such a key point, right? Taiwan is also one of the highest in terms of GDP per capita versus some of the other developed nations in Asia. You've got the user, capacity to pay, but the willingness to pay has to do a lot with whether they truly value the content provided by news, and then are there systems in place that also encourage them to pay for other content, so not just news. This is. Sorry, go ahead.
Something else, meaning that I think one of the reasons that people will not pay for news is possibly because of trust, the low trust they have with the media organizations. So that's one of the reasons they just think that, well, anyway, these kind of news it's not worth paying for. So that gives us an advantage. Actually, according to the Reuters Institute of the Cambridge, Oxford University, where the leading
trusted brand. Yeah,
brand trust.
Yeah.
We're ranking the #1 in the
business
media. So I think that will be one thing that's one of the key to get a subscription. I think that's very important too.
Absolutely. And we've seen, with the pandemic as well, the trust in news has gone up overall across the globe. And we're starting to see sort of trends come back. This is again through the Reuters data. We see an increase in trust in news because it was the one source after government bodies and health organizations that readers were going to find the most updated information on the pandemic. What about BQ? So, shifting a lens from a market that actually there is capacity for the user to pay, but there is lack of trust, and that becomes a great inhibitor in launching a successful subscription model. From the India context, you were one of the first to actually go and launch subscription when there were hardly any competitive landscape for that. In addition to the willingness to pay from an Indian user was fairly high, the work that we've done around market for news readership as well. So what are some of the trends that you are seeing that are defining subscription success for you, and which ones are the ones that you're focusing on over the next year or so?
So it's been an incredibly exciting and challenging time to be in the subscriptions business in India because the landscape is evolving rapidly. 2 years ago, we had hardly one competitor with a subscription product. And now pretty much every legacy business news outlet is coming up with some form or the other of a paywall, whether they want just a subscription paywall where people register and sign up, or they go full paywall, get people to pay for it. So the landscape's changed dramatically, and that sort of forced us to constantly innovate and try and make sure that we also launch new features that draw in users and try and ride on that and try and get people to pay more for news and to get to a position where they're willing to pay. So one of the first things we did at the start of our journey was to introduce a paper article format. We wanted, as a young brand, we wanted to get our content out there. We wanted people to be familiar with the brand Bloomberg Quint, and we didn't want the paywall to put them off. So we introduced the paper article format. So the best of Bloomberg Quint's content could be purchased one story at a time. That was a good experiment that sort of helped us get to new people. And then we also coupled that with shorter term subscriptions. So we had 3-month subscriptions, 6-month subscriptions, so that people didn't feel like they were committing a large amount of money upfront to something that they were not sure they wanted to purchase. Over the course of the last 2 years, 26 months that we've been a paywall product, we have slowly shifted away from some of the earlier experiments because our goals have changed. We have built a great amount of brand credibility in a hyper-competitive Indian market, right? So the business news space is probably gotten every big legacy media player in the country has a business news vertical. A large number of global players have entered the business news space in India. So and despite all of that, we managed to build credibility and a brand image in India. And now we are trying to ride on it. So we have removed the paper article format. We've increased the subscription duration. So we now have 12-month and 24-month subscription plans. We are also now starting to introduce a lot of data-driven experiments to try and see how our users will respond to changes within the paywall ecosystem. We want to try and build out a registration paywall to give users the incentive to register on BQ, read some of the stories and sample it. But at the same time, they are also making a commitment to us saying that, hey, we're willing to sign up and we're willing to take that one step towards becoming a full-time subscriber. Some of the key trends that we've been seeing is that as competition increases and as people start paying for not just news, but entertainment, for everything else, there is a larger propensity to pay and a larger willingness to pay. And that sort of rubs off on news as well. But for us, the thing that works most and best is niche content that sort of provides actionable intelligence. We are in a space where people want to read a story and be able to take it away and not just have a water cooler conversation, but to actually make money off it. And that's the place that we are in. We're trying to increase that analytical content, the niche content that they won't find elsewhere. And that's what's really driving subscriptions for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Nanda. I think you've raised, before we jump into some of the other conversations that planned in, I think you've raised a really important point, which is that, one is to look at the consumer trends that are defining subscription success, but then also to constantly be on the pulse of your readership and understand what is your value proposition to them and what is truly going to drive not just, acquisition, but retention of that user in your ecosystem. What are some of the ways that BQ has implemented to not just do market research, but actually speak to your readers and understand the value proposition that is unique and differentiated for the BQ?
Everybody want to take that?
Yeah. So basically, Sheena, we do a lot of research. People who subscribe with us, and we do a lot of surveys and all. We get to know what their what their feedback is, and to understand the audience, like a subscriber, a signed up user, and a user who has turned out, to understand their behavior, it's very, very important. So basically, yeah, I think this is very important, the research part.
Anything else, Shalun or YC, you'd like to add in terms of best practices around understanding value proposition for your readership? What are some of the ways that you're trying to do it?
It's not easy. I think we've been in the business for 40 years. And so I think this is a question we have always tried to understand from our readers. And I think the interesting part is because we have digital subscription, we're actually attracting not only our loyal readers who are now trying out digital subscriptions, we're also attracting a new breed of readers who may or may not have experienced our print product. So what we've been doing is we've done a lot of surveys. We also do a lot of focus groups. We have them come in and tell us why do they subscribe. But more and more we find that this is a very diverse group. So we actually really, the more we do it, we find that we need to consistently and continuously do more research and segment them, because really everybody subscribe for a different reason. And as we look to expand this market, we probably need to look for the not so typical readers that we always seen, but also expand that a little bit. So that's something we're actually currently doing and continuously exploring and in conversations with our subscribers.
I think being more responsive. I mean, actually, we have like how many people data is doing our data.
We have a big data team.
Yeah, right.
Well, not big. Three to four. We didn't have one
That's
before.
big enough.
Big enough for us. So we're constantly looking,
watching, but
dissecting how they're reading our stuff.
Still, being more responsive to whatever readers are responding. Like we have a daily report telling us double conversion rates, and how are readers responding to different articles or different subjects or different promotion project. I think being more responsive is very important. And this data team, although it's not big enough, but they are very helpful in that respect, so that we learn to be, well, in the past it's a monthly thing or a bi-weekly thing or a seasonal thing, but these days it's daily thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's very helpful.
Right.
Yeah. And also,
So,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it's just that, we think traditionally, the fact that we are a business magazine, that people come to us for business news, and that's probably, Bloomberg Quint with, news that you can actually make money out of. I think that's a very strong value proposition. But for us, we always think that people come, for our business news and industry analysis. But I think the more we look into data, we also find that, the softer articles could also be a conversion. There is a segment that does convert for these articles that actually surprises us. It's actually a sizable group. I mean, the traditional ones do exist, but there are others that come to us for the fashion
readers
news,
have
lifestyle news.
different new
Yeah,
needs.
so I think that's something that we would not have looked into had we not done these data crunching and focus group. Yeah.
Fantastic, and I think it's one of the most fascinating ones, which is that articles that sometimes lead to conversion are not the ones that are driving most page views in your acquisition. So finding the balance in which articles are you going to have behind or outside of the paywall is also a challenge. But shifting gears to while you've been building your subscription lab or your subscription success even before the lab, and trying to understand what's going to drive sustainable revenue for subscriptions. When you joined the lab, were there any sort of initial challenges that you faced, and were there any positive surprises? Something, because you do have a running business, which meant that you had these practices in place. But what was some of the challenges that you faced, and then any positive surprises? Would love to hear.
Very time consuming.
What is?
Thank you, I say.
Well, I guess we'll go first, but feel free to jump in, BQ. For us, we actually hit a plateau early last year, so that was a very bit difficult challenge for us. How do we generate new growth? And I think one of the key findings in the lab is that we really need to work on getting people to come and read more, to build up the entire ecosystems. I think in the past we always thought about, okay, we don't have enough people, so we just try to expand that market and try to get more people to come in. But through the lab, I think one of the biggest important insights is that we have a big enough pool, but we're not engaging them enough. We need to really, draw them in. I mean, they are in the pool, but they're not close enough to us. So how do we get them to read more? How do we engage them? And that's either through, paywall design or, getting them to sign up for our newsletters. How do we get them to be members? And these are the tools that we are implementing as we speak. So our numbers are picking back up, I think, in the last 3 months. So I think that's good news. It's quite a difficult challenge that we're still trying to get out of. But I think right now we have a few pointers that we are trying to leverage and see if that will work. So.
Thank you. Weber, shifting the same question to you. What were some of the challenges, considering you, as Nandu shared, you've been doing a lot of experiments, you've launched a lot of new features and products and value propositions as well. What were some of the challenges that you faced, and were there any positive surprises?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest challenge that we had was to increase our paywall impression or the paywall interception rate. So because being we are not 100% subscription only product, we are also dependent on ad revenues. So so we had to make sure that any step we take should not it should not affect our ad revenues. So basically what we are doing right now is we are doing a lot of experiments with the propensity based models and lock the right articles for the right audience. So this is pretty tricky, and we are doing a lot of experiments in this space. And yeah, we are. It's an evolution process. Besides that, one of the other challenges was to increase the upper funnel for the subscription product. So getting more people to sign up. So as Nandu mentioned, we are also going to try with. We are also starting to try with registration paywall. Besides that, we made certain changes on the sign up flow, made sign up a little frictionless, and we saw like a 50% growth in signups. So I think that was one of a very positive surprise. Besides that, simple UI UX changes, experimenting with the messaging, with the pricing, how you put a message on a paywall. It also really helps, and get your subscription page right. And yeah, so basically all these UI UX things also led to a lot of good uh, improvement in the conversion rates and all.
Thank you, Vaibhav, for that sense of in the positives or the challenges kind of together, the engagement bit, which is that it's one thing to acquire users, but it's another thing to keep them engaged, to ensure that they're retained into your ecosystem. And this balance of acquisition versus engagement, whether it is retention, is becoming front and center for not just you, but all the other 8 partners who were part of the lab. And one of the key ways that we saw partners engage, and it is a growing trend, is the resurgence of newsletters, right? We're seeing a lot more personalized newsletters, single news organizations that only have a newsletter product, or bigger media houses like a New York Times having 72 plus newsletters. What were some of the ways that you felt like you're employing newsletters across the board? And then what are some of the other distribution strategies that you're using to either acquire more users, but then also to convert and retain them?
So, like we were talking about, we launched the paywall fairly early in our existence, 2 years of being a product, and then we launched the paywall. So this reach versus conversion debate was especially critical for us, because all the editors did not want to give up on the traffic and the number of people that were reading the story, the kind of social media engagement you could generate when a story was free and was available to everyone. So for us, that mental shift that we needed to make to starting to implement the paywall and to put conversion first and front and center in all our efforts was a big mindset shift that had to be done. But through the course of the feedback that we got, the kind of subscription numbers that we garnered, and the inputs that we got through the subscription labs, I think we've sort of shifted away from maximizing reach to trying to make sure that, like Vaibhav mentioned, all our effort is to maximize paywall impressions. We want to try and make sure that we have as many people coming and hitting the paywall every single month, so that we are giving them the reason to come back and subscribe. We have a unique advantage. We think the hybrid paywall gives us a flexibility to sort of balance these often competing priorities, right? So when there's a big news event that happens where we sometimes tend to make it free, so that we want to fund the good BQ content to reach as many people as possible. So they know that, okay, Bloomberg Quint, if you come back to Bloomberg Quint, this is the level of content that you'll get. At the same time, and that sort of brings in new users through social media, news aggregators, and of course, search. Search is our main driver for reach as well as conversions. So these big news events are a big trigger for us to get new people into the gate and to get new people into the top of the funnel. A large proportion of our stories fall into the metered paywall. So those are designed for people who come back multiple times during the course of the month, and a select analytical stories that are exclusive to our subscribers, or what we call as hard paywall stories. We've been doing a lot to try and make sure that emails and web push, so notifications, whether it is web push or emailers and the like, we've been trying to put in a lot of effort. And one of the things that we have taken away from the lab is to try and increase social traffic. We've not really managed to leverage it to the best possible extent. And that's something that we really want to try and put more effort going forward, try and employ different strategies to promote the best of Bloomberg Quint's content, to make sure it's reaching maximum number of people. We also want, as part of our subscription journey, we also want to build out more subscriber-only features and events. When someone comes into BQ, they should know that it's not just the text content, not just the video, but they can actually participate in some of the events that we curate for our subscribers. And that is a real value add for a lot of people in India who don't get that kind of access to business leaders, market experts, etc., which we can actually facilitate being a platform like Bloomberg.
Thanks, Nandu. And I think I really like, what you said about emails as well. Like, it is that touch point that builds direct relationships with your readers. And I think the Reuters report also mentioned that your subscribers are more likely to read your emails than they are to actually go to your, to the app sometimes and look at the product. Commonwealth, would you have any thing to add here in terms of what is your view on reach versus conversion, and what are some of the ways that you are seeing strategies across reach versus conversion be successsul? And I just want to quickly highlight here as well. Obviously, I have a lot of these questions for our panelists here, but for those of you who are watching, please feel free to plug in your questions even now, and our moderator will make sure that they reach us so that we can get some audience engagement going as well. So plug in your questions, and we'll take them one by one. Shalin, back to you.
Right. Minchun, you want to take this one, right?
Sort of. It just reminds me. Well, in terms of reach, there are other parts that we can talk about later, but social or stuff like that. But in terms of engagement, I think what we've been trying to do, and is very helpful, which are special interest verticals. They are very helpful to engage readers. Sort of cultivating loyal readers on to visit them, to push them to come to our website on a daily basis, meaning that they know exactly what they are looking for, and our editorial will produce the articles or reports that's fits to their needs, so that on a daily basis again. So we can cultivate a group of loyal readers and come to our website on a daily basis. Then that's the first step into conversion, meaning that they come here every day to look for things that they want to know. And I think that's sort of helpful. We have gone down, we have 5 verticals, yes. Which free, out of paywall, but they are very helpful in terms of getting people coming to our website.
Yeah. So concurrent.
I want to just. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Shalin.
No, Sheena, you do want to ask us follow-up question?
Yeah, I just want to stop here for a minute, because you've said something very critical, which I think was common again across the lab, was this habit of or the practice of getting really editorial involved in not just creating content that goes behind the paywall, but part of the decision making in terms of daily reports and daily sort of meetings that decide what does the audience want, and getting editorial buy-in to create that kind of articles and content as well. I'd actually want to just shift the gears a little bit towards BQ and ask them, did you face any editorial challenges in terms of, like, we've got Nandu here as well, what were some of the gaps that you feel were addressed or should be addressed when it comes to editorial versus subscription teams and developing a stronger subscription product?
So the reason that I'm here with Vaibhav is because we think there is absolute necessity that there is great amount of collaboration between editorial and subscription products, subscription teams. So we try and make sure, and we were very clear about that right from day one. We were, Bloomberg globally had also started thinking of using paywall. So we did learn a lot from their experiences and their inputs. And we basically come to the conclusion that we will take paywall decisions based primarily on editorial sensibility. So we will, if it's a story where we think it's going to add value to a reader, because these are not really tangible with like objective metrics. So sometimes you need an editorial filter on top of your data filters to decide what is a hard paywall story or what is a metered story. But at the same time, we keep taking inputs in from the subscriptions team. Daily reports that come in, weekly meetings, monthly debriefs on what's worked, what's not. So these kind of constant interactions sort of brings everybody on the same page. People understand what is the kind of content that's driving reach, what is the kind of content that's driving subscriptions. We understand which subsegments of our coverage is starting to really pick up and starting to bring more people into our subscriptions ecosystem. So this constant engagement is something that's going to be absolutely critical for us. And that's something that we want to try and make sure that we refine and we take it forward. Vaibhav, if you have anything to add or to contradict, please go forward.
Absolutely. I think it's very important for both, the subscription team and the editorial team to work together, and the success is defined by, that. So I think
He's on my speed dial, so you can understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's across teams. It's our managing editor and the head of product. All of them keep engaging. They try to find out if a story that they thought would do well, it didn't turn out the way that they expected. There's always a conversation to try and figure out, okay, what went wrong, what could we do differently the next time around. So that conversation is absolutely essential.
Thank you. Thank you for reiterating that as well. And I think, when we were having these conversations with the participants in Japan or in, even in Cambodia with the Southeast Asia globe, this kind of like balance and bringing this culture of into having the entire organization galvanize itself towards subscription is really, really key for subscription success, and editorial is front and center of it. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I just want to quickly be also respectful of time. Looks like we're all still waiting for questions. I want to shift gears towards one last thing that was, brought out by our lab, was this idea of how pricing can be a differentiator in not just communicating the value of your product, but also helping you build on ARPU or help you build an acquisition. And different publishers have different strategies around pricing, whether it be strategic pricing, dynamic pricing, or just discounts and promotions to get a lot of acquisition or upper funnel acquisition. What are some of the ways that you are implementing pricing in your subscription strategy at present, and where would you want to see that go? To give you some context as well, in the morning conversation we had the Hindu that were also part of the lab. Pradeep talked about how did a lot of experimentation around pricing, and in the end the realization was they still undervalued a lot of their product, and now they're building towards it. So how are you circumventing that situation, and what role does pricing play in the product at BQ? And then I'll quickly shift to Commonwealth.
Yeah. So pricing is a very sensitive topic. We have, spent hours and hours, just like discussing this. So earlier, what we did is we did an analysis of an Indian market, see what people could pay, and, we added our, premium to it. So besides that, right now, what we are doing is for acquiring new users, we are using, introductory pricing. Basically, for a first term, we are giving them some certain discount. The renewal will happen at the full price, so that we maintain the ARPU. Besides that, we have a 2-year pack, which is which costs around 5,000 Indian rupees. So basically, the idea is to get the most loyal users get to that pack 2 years, because getting someone for a longer duration really helps. Besides that, we are to maintain ARPU, we make sure that we are limiting the discounts that we give. Either we give the discount the first time when a person is joining, or if a person has paid the full price at renewal, we try to give them discount or some value add, like extra months or something. Besides that, on pricing, we are also giving deep discounts for students, just to promote this Bloomberg Quint student community, and we are offering around 50% discount for students. So that's how.
So you're also looking at segmented audiences and sort of like segmented pricing for different audiences based on obviously their capacity to or willingness to pay. That's really interesting. Shalun, I know you have very strong opinions about pricing as well, so we'd love to hear from you on how are you at Commonwealth looking at pricing and strategic pricing for that?
I can't say we have been as strategic as we would like to be. I think in the past, we've really been trying to get people to try our product. So there's been a lot of promotion that's been used to at least to get them to try, with a very small barrier for entry. And in our survey and focus group, we found that a lot of our subscribers, they begin subscribing digitally via promotional pricing, and then thereafter they will switch to a longer term subscription, and that's how they come, and a lot of our longer term subscribers came this way. So it's the path that we are observing, but we at the same time, like BQ, we are investigating into possibilities of different price product for different segments and potentially different like students. We're thinking of what we could do strategically to get them and get their mind share, and perhaps a higher or middle price product. So it's still in the process. I don't think we are very far out, very sophisticated in this pricing area yet. It's something we'd like to improve going forward. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think very few publishers in the market have figured out what pricing needs to look like dynamically, or differentiated between acquisition to conversion. So I think it's important to have that conversation, right? It's important to actually address that pricing is a key differentiator and how to strategically approach it. Look, I also want to be very, very respectful for a time. We're at 50 already, and so. Just wrapping up the conversation, I'd love to hear from you individually. What were some of the key takeaways from the lab, and what do you think you will be focusing on moving forward as you build towards subscription success?
Me first?
YC? Sure.
Okay, sure. I appreciate this project a lot, since it helped us, our management team, to come to a consensus on our next steps or priorities. And in the past, we somehow knew the general direction of our subscription model, but the picture of our roadmap was different in everyone's mind, or the items in each of the goals we talked about are scattered or diverse. So this effort and the suggested framework, very important, help every one of our team know exactly what we are aiming for, or exactly what we're each one of us is talking about anyway. So I think it's very helpful, and sort of leading the way. I think it's very helpful. Thank you. But however, before I end, there's one thing I would like to raise that cannot be neglected. That's the news of Google and FB versus Australia Media Bargaining Co. and its impact. So when we talked about subscription revenue model, we cannot evade the problem of failing advertising revenue of all the news media in the world. So I think it will only be fair that we ask Google, our sponsor of this project, to seriously consider our disposition at this transitional period and start talking to us about what revenue sharing mechanism from the quality news and services we provide on Google network and platform. Without disrespect, really, I'm not looking for trouble. I'm just a journalist. But I think this is a trend that all news media would have to face in the coming years. So if we're serious about our sustainability, so this is something I would like to add. Thank you.
Thank you, YC, and we're having these conversations as you speak, as we have this conversation here on what models could look like in terms of Google supporting, and I think these are conversations that are going to be pertinent moving forward as well. Anything from you, Shalun, that you'd like to add before we move to BQ?
I think she covered it. We can move to BQ.
Awesome.
Yes.
Quickly, Vaibhav and Nandu, anything from your end in terms of the lab experience and what your key takeaways were?
So the lab experience was amazing. We have really made some business decisions, and we are shaping our roadmap for the next year according to our experience in lab. Our biggest takeaway is driving major focus on engagement. Getting your flyby audience to become potential loyalist and potential loyalist to become loyalist. Putting major focus on getting you to engage. Then improve like subscriber benefits and core value proposition. One of the most used words in the labs was core value proposition. So we need to basically communicate to our subscribers that these are the value that you have received on a on a monthly or a weekly basis, and to or people who you want to target, and create a FOMO out there. And third, I think one of the most important thing that everybody knows, but focusing on subscriber retention to scale long-term digital revenues. Besides focusing on acquisition, it's very, very important to focus on the subscriber retention to build a long-term business.
Thank you so much. While I'm very happy that it was a positive experience, I think, we've highlighted a lot of the challenges as well. There is still a lot more work to do. YC's mentioned, the work that we as a technology partner needs to continue to do in the market, but then also help build subscription success for our publishers. So I want to thank you once again we are the one piece between people and their lunches. So I think, I want to thank everyone who's been listening to us also for their time. Thank you, our panelists, for taking out the time to share your journeys. We'll continue to keep track of as you put some of these experiments in place, but it's important to not look at subscription as a mountain to climb, but smaller experiments that can help build success on a day-to-day basis. So once again, thank you so much, and hopefully see you all soon at the next WAN-IFRA event. Thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheena and panelists, for your wonderful sharing. I think the delegates definitely are hungry, but they're hungry for knowledge. Okay, and so our next session's premium newsletters is coming up at 3 p.m. IST India time. I hope I get the time correct, because I do some minus off from the Singapore time. Okay, and also don't forget to visit our exhibitors at the virtual booth. And if you go back to the timeline, and then it's on the right side, meet exhibitors, as well as there is a very important features in the meeting hub. Because in the conventional events, we can actually meet up with each other over coffee breaks. But right now in the virtual events, the only way we can do so is through the meeting hub. We might have some pending network connections to be made over there. And with that, thank you for attending this morning's sessions. And I'll see you later. And thank you. Bye.